everybody has their own way to essentially reach the same point of a finished book. And there really is no one way to do it, which makes it so infinitely tricky.
Absolutely. It really is. But I think, that's the labor of love, right? Is that we can't exist without story. And if you're so called and so drawn to tell story, then it almost becomes really fun to say, okay, let me try it this way. Let's see, does this work for me? And then once you figure out what your process is, it's really just rinse and repeat. Like it took me a very long time to figure out
Hmm.
that I needed an outline, which is silly, right? Because one, I'm such a type A person that when I announced very dramatically to my writing friends, I was like, I'm going to start using an outline. They're like, why have you not been? Because your personality is one that requires an outline, right? So I think, just sometimes it's just like it takes a while to just get into who you need to be as an author.
Hello, and welcome to So I Wrote a Book, Now What? Where writers chat about writing. My guest today is Jessica Berg. She is an author as well as the founder and an agent at Rosecliff Literary Agency. I'm so excited for you to hear our interview. We talked all about her writing process as well as what she's looking for in future clients. So let's get into it.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, what made you decide to write a book?
So I've always been drawn to story, and I think it's the natural progression, right? We have a story that exists in our head, so of course we want to get it out of our head. And then the next step is how do I get it into the hands of readers?
When did you start writing?
I can't remember a time when I wasn't writing. The elementary school I went to every year was like the capstone for each grade to write a book. So like even in kindergarten, I was, writing a book. I'm sure there's no plot, and it was absolutely about cats, but so I think like from that early inception, I was thinking about story and how to talk about story.
That's kind of cool that they did that. Did you just continue to do that throughout your schooling?
Yeah, up until sixth grade. So every year I have this book. And like I'm not going to lie, they are all about cats. They are all about cats in some way.
That's amazing.
Like the first one is very basic. It's like two cats who are friends. And then by the end, by sixth grade, there's a mystery that has to be solved, which I was reading a lot of Nancy Drew, obviously.
Oh, nice. What kind of books do you write now?
So right now I am working on a World War I spec fic book that features witches and spies. And I'm really excited about that. In the nonfiction space, I've got some books in the works that are craft books geared towards specific population groups to kind of help us understand why we write, how we write, and how to write better.
Oh, that's so exciting. I love craft books.
Same. Yeah. Like I can never stop myself.
And you have the unique position where you're an author and an agent. Were you an author first and then an agent?
Yes, I was an author first. I have an MFA, so I worked for a while as an editor, and I really loved being immersed in narrative and working with my clients long term. But then every time we would wrap a project, I found myself mourning because I've just spent 3, 6 months, whatever, with the author and their project, and now they've gone off, and I don't know what's ever going to happen to them again. So I kind of sat with that for a while and thought, okay, well, what's the disconnect here? And it wasn't not wanting to be in story, it's that I wanted to be on the next rung of the ladder. So it felt like becoming an agent was the natural progression for me.
That makes a lot of sense. Is it challenging to do both?
I mean, the honest answer is yes, of course, right? Because I want to be in my story. So, for example, today I'm drafting, and I left last night at this very pivotal moment in my plot, and all day my character has been in my head, as we all know, right? As writers, we experience that.
Mhm.
So she's been in my head all day, and I've had literally back-to-back calls, and so my focus has to be with my clients and their projects and their work because I take this relationship very seriously. It's so sacred to me. So it is challenging, but the longer I juggle both roles, the more I learn how to pay myself first and to be okay with taking a little bit of time every day just for myself.
Do you write every day?
I journal every day, but I absolutely do not produce creative work every day. I cannot. I cannot.
Yeah.
I don't understand that how that became the de facto advice that we give authors. Like, I feel like it's so, who has the time to write every day, first of all, or who has the energy or the wherewithal, or I don't know. I just don't understand how to do that. So I'm definitely not in that camp.
When you do write a book, how do you tackle the project at first? Do you write extensive outlines, or are you more a discovery draft kind of writer?
Oh, I cannot exist without an outline. It has to have an outline. I'm a big fan of understanding where I'm heading. And that's not to say that the creative process needs to be so rigorous and structured, but I do appreciate knowing the beats that I have to hit, because otherwise I will allow my characters to just meander, they'll flounder, there will be no stakes, nothing will ever happen because I love prose, right? I love the language of it. So I have to have an outline.
Do your characters ever surprise you when you outline? Or does it stick pretty much to the plan?
It never sticks to the plan, but I think that's okay, right? As long as I go, it's fine. It's fine, really. I need to know what needs to happen in a scene or in a chapter. And I need to know what the first pinch point is, or the 50% mark. And while I'm in the draft, if something else happens that I didn't anticipate, that's great. And I'll take it every day. But if I don't have that end state, I like I said, I don't know what's going to happen for my characters. So I have to have something in place for them to follow, even if it changes.
If it changes, do you go and re-outline from there, or do you just keep going and make notes for yourself that, oh, this has to change later?
Yeah, I mean, I think so often we get caught in those spirals, whether it's like a research spiral or a revision spiral or a planning spiral. So once I've set the outline, um, and once I've written a synopsis and I've written a query, I kind of have a concept of what the project's meant to be. So if we change midstream, I'm not going to go back and redo all of it. I just make that note. Okay, this needs to change. And that actually just happened this week.
Mhm.
I drafted a chapter and then realized, oh no, that doesn't make sense for this thing that I'm seeding later on. And I was like, well, I just want to keep the forward momentum. I'm not going to go back to revise right now. I'll just make myself a note and go back to it later.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That seems like a good way to do it. I try to be I am learning to be a more extensive outliner before I start projects so that I don't get stuck on draft 12 of a project. But then it kind of trips me up of like, do you go back? And it seems like just moving forward and making notes is a better way to do it so you don't spiral.
Yeah, yeah, because I think then you can almost too easily hop onto the revision wheel where you're like, oh, but now I want to clean up this
Mhm.
sentence and wouldn't this sound better this way? And especially in those early stage drafts where we're really just telling ourselves the story, I think it's essential to keep the momentum going because we all know how
Mhm.
quickly imposter syndrome can creep in. And then, like you said, it's going to be a stalled draft. And how do you come out of that?
Right, exactly. It becomes a shelf draft.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, which I have many of.
Yeah, same.
Mm.
What do you do when your draft is done? Do you go back and revise it yourself, or do you implement beta readers at that point?
I generally don't show anyone work until I've rewritten it 4 or 5 times, because at that until that point, I can't take on feedback because I'm still getting to know my characters. I'm still getting to know, what makes them hurt, what makes them happy. And so when I feel like I'm getting close to the point where I'm ready to turn into my agent, then I lean on trusted beta readers to give me that really hard feedback to say, this is terrible, Jess. You need to start all over. They don't say that, but at some point I expect that
Right.
one of them is going to say that. And then, I take that into careful consideration. I just read a thread the other day that said, there was a science fiction or fantasy author who had something like 2,000 beta readers. And I thought,
Oh
oh
my.
my goodness, how could you ever manage to absorb, to take in that feedback? And then how do you decide what to change, right? Wow.
Yeah, that's
Um,
so much. How many beta readers do you typically have?
I usually have two or three, and I like them to be not in the genre I'm writing because I think that that's really
Oh,
important for them to
interesting.
catch. Yeah, so um, not in my genre means that they're going to look less at what we anticipate seeing with witches or spies or something, and more to look at the actual craft. Does the pacing work? Where are the stakes? How is the conflict elevated? Does the dialogue do the work that it's meant to do? Because I just think it's too easy for us if we're
Mm-hmm.
all reading in the same space, we're going to overlook things that someone from an outside genre might not.
Mm-hmm. Where do you
Yeah.
find your beta readers?
I'm fortunate enough to have been in this space for so very long that I've got a trusted group of friends that I can immediately lean on. I think for authors who are new or who still trying to find, their flock, social media is the best place. That how
Mm-hmm.
else can we find anyone these days, first of all? But it's absolutely a wonderful place to see, do you connect personality wise? Are you writing about similar things? Can you provide feedback? Can they receive feedback? And as we all know, it's kind of a trial and error sort of process, right? Like my first group of beta readers are not the
Mm-hmm.
people that I have now, but that's because I've been doing this for so long.
Mm-hmm. How do you know when a project is done or ready to submit to the next level? I guess it's not done until it's on the shelf, but
Yeah. I there's a craft book that I really love called Seven Drafts by Allison K. Williams.
oh, I love that one
And
too.
right? Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And so I
Mm-hmm.
really just like follow
It is.
what she says. Like I write it 7 times and I'm like, well, this is as done as I can make it. And then that's when I solicit feedback from
Mm-hmm.
my agent to say, okay, are we ready to go? And even then, I feel like we end up going through a round or two of revisions before we go out on sub. So I think, if you've written the book 8, 9 times, it's probably close to being done.
Yeah, it's so hard to tell. When I
So
first
hard.
got that book too, I was like, oh my gosh, 7 drafts. My goodness. And then like you get into a really like project and you're like, oh yes, 7 drafts sounds great. Let's do 7 drafts.
Absolutely. And I think it takes some of that pressure off from needing to feel like you're writing your perfect first draft, right? Especially if you're
Mm-hmm.
still new to craft. Um, I have a friend who's working on her first novel. She's just given birth to her second son. Like she's got a lot going on. And she's like, I just want to finish this, but I need it to be perfect. And I keep encouraging her, like, just get it on the page because it's going to change and morph and become something new so many times.
Yeah, so true. I
Mhm.
also read I got that book at the same time I got Refused to Be Done by Matt
Oh,
Bell.
yeah.
And it said, write your novel in 3 drafts, which is great. And he has a lot of great advice too. But one of the steps of his 3 drafts is to completely rewrite the book. And I was like, let's go back to this 7 drafts business.
Yeah.
Like he
You
has
know,
you put the whole thing aside and rewrite it from scratch.
yes. And I think that there's merit to that, absolutely, because whatever doesn't make it in maybe was not meant to be in there to start. Um, but I think
Mm-hmm.
that that only works if you're the kind of author who can hold your entire story in your head. Like for me, that's a challenge,
Mm.
right? That's why I rely so heavily on my outline. And, I'm such a percentage plotter because I need the external visual clues to remind me where I am in my story. Um, I mean, Matt's absolutely onto something. Look at Appleseed, right? Like that's such an amazing
Yeah.
novel. And so if it works for you, it works for you. But I think that that's ultimately like there's never a right answer when we're talking about creative work.
Yeah, it's definitely that's what I find so interesting and intimidating, like empowering and scary at the same time is that everybody has their own way to essentially reach the same point of a finished book. And there really is no one way to do it, which makes it so infinitely tricky.
Absolutely. It really is. But I think, that's the labor of love, right? Is that we can't exist without story. And if you're so called and so drawn to tell story, then it almost becomes really fun to say, okay, let me try it this way. Let's see, does this work for me? And then once you figure out what your process is, it's really just rinse and repeat. Like it took me a very long time to figure out that I needed an outline, which is silly, right? Because one, I'm such a type A person that when I announced very dramatically to my writing friends, I was like, I'm going to start using an outline. They're like, why have you not been? Because your personality is one that requires an outline, right? So I think, just sometimes it's just like it takes a while to just get into who you need to be as an author.
That's so true.
Mhm.
Have you ever felt stuck in your writing?
I mean, of course, right? There are always thorny plots that don't behave, and there are characters who don't act the way I want them to. But I am a firm believer that there is no such thing as writer's block. I think that
Mm.
when we like lean into that concept, it allows us to flounder. And so if I refuse to believe that writer's block exists, then it requires me to look at the project in a different way. So if I can't move forward with a particular scene, fine, fair. I'm just going to go on to something else. So I never like to feel like I'm
Mhm.
stuck in that forward motion of writing a book. But yeah, I get stuck all the time. I have no idea what's going to happen most of the time to these characters. I mean, we're just seeing what's going on, right? But I can't believe that there is such a thing as writer's block because I think once you start saying, okay, writer's block exists, then it's the next step is, oh, I'm not a writer because I can't produce. And that just feels like a really slippery slope
Right.
to me, right?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. When you became an agent, did you start Rosecliff Literary Agency?
I did. Yeah, I'm the principal agent and founder.
So that's a big undertaking.
Yes.
What made you want to do that and make that decision?
Yeah. So, publishing is an amazing industry that does so much to bring story to the world. But when I started looking at available avenues to enter publishing in my 40s, I quickly realized that if I could not sustain myself on an unpaid internship for 6 months in New York, there really weren't many available options to me, right? Um,
Mhm.
and I cannot sustain myself for 6 months unpaid in New York. Like that just it's inaccessible. And so then I thought, oh, okay, maybe I do um, an associate agenting like quasi internship at an established agency. But I didn't like the how hard I would need to be working for someone else. Um,
Mhm.
I am an entrepreneur by nature. I absolutely refuse to believe there's not a path. I'm just going to make the path for myself. So when I sat down and really thought it through, I thought, what is the most reasonable way I can ensure success? And that is if I'm working for myself, because then it's not me. I don't have the crutch of an agency that's established. Then everything falls on me. I enjoy pressure like that because I think it forces me to act in ways that I might not otherwise. And so it felt like the only foregone conclusion was that, of course, I need to start my own agency. Like, I think I probably entertained the other options for half a second. And then I thought, no, of course not. Like, this is it.
Mhm.
This is the way.
And how has it been so far?
We're doing great. So we'll turn one in May of this year, which is exciting, our first
Yay!
anniversary. Yeah,
That's
thank you. We have three additional agents at the agency now, all who are actively building their lists in lots of different fun genres. I'm still taking on clients. We've had a few PM announcements. So all Ted, I think that, it's a labor of love, but it's one that I really enjoy doing.
and
Yeah.
when you look to take on a client, what do you look for?
I'm a big vibe and gut check person. So, I can love the manuscript. I can like what I see online. I can appreciate how you're showing up and advocating and being a citizen. But it's that call that really does it for me. Like, do our personalities make sense together? And then can I
Mhm.
meet you where you need me to be as an agent? Right? Like, I never want to provide the same type of communication, for example, to every single client, because every client receives information in a different way. So if you need me to send you a voice note once a week versus here's a long form email once a month, I really try to make sure that everything I'm doing for my client is specific to them. So when I'm looking at a project, it's in one part, is this gorgeously written? Does it feel fresh? Does it have a unique voice? Can I see it in the bookshelf? That's one part. The other really big component is, do I have the editorial relationships established with editors that I know are looking for this kind of project? And I think that's a component that we don't talk about very often when we're talking about getting your agent, right? It's not always just,
So true.
right. Yeah. It's not just like, is your work great? It's, do they know the right people to send it to? Like I can find a beautiful piece of like someone could pitch me a military thriller, for example, and I might absolutely love it. But I don't know any military thriller editors. I wouldn't know where to begin with a project. So that's a really big component. And then the other component is the personality. Like, do we vibe? What is my gut telling me? How do you show up online? What are you doing for your community? What, etc. So I think it's really those three tines on the on the fork rather.
Yeah. As a new agent and as a new agency, how did you develop your relationships with editors? Was it from previous relationships just by being in the publishing world for so long?
No, it's really taking a lot of Zoom calls. It's cold pitching editors and saying, I love your list, and here's my favorite book on your list. And do you have 10 minutes to give me to talk about what you want to see in your inbox? I think that's, at the end of the day, this is all a relationships business. That's what it is. And so I spend a lot of time talking to editors every week because that benefits my clients. It helps me understand the pulse in the industry, and it helps to develop, the agency.
I feel like that's very brave. Like, I feel like writing in itself takes a lot of bravery because it takes a lot of bravery to put your work out there. But then also to start your own agency and then to cold call editors. It's so brave. Like, where does that, I guess, come from? That resilience.
I mean, we can call it resilience or we can call it hubris. I mean, like, um, yeah, I think ultimately I'm just wired to be the kind of person that if this is what I want, then I'm going to figure out how to do it. Um, I'm really adept at handling several roles, at being in high stress environments. And so because of that, this feels like a really natural fit for me. Um, I like connecting people. I like being a connector. So it all just kind of gels.
A lot of writers and people trying to break into the industry are very fearful of rejection. And so I guess that's why the bravery of what you've done sticks out, is because you can't have, I mean, like, you could have it, but you have to push past that because it's very likely that the editors won't call you back or don't have time. Like, there's a lot of rejection that could happen in any turn.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of that comes from, I've been writing, submitting, publishing for such a long time that a rejection to me, of course, it still stings, but I never see it as now, not never, now I am able to not see it as some mark against me and my humanity and my craft, right? I understand that there are so many nuances to it. And this is an incredibly subjective industry. I always believe that, one rejection is just getting me closer to my yes. And I am a tragic optimist, as I'm sure you can probably tell. Like, I will find a way to make anything seem bright and shiny. And so because of that, yeah, I mean, if an editor doesn't call me back, that's okay. I know they're busy, but I'm also okay to like try again, right? It's being persistent. It's, you use that word resiliency. And I think that that's probably a component to it.
Yeah, so true. What are some books that have inspired you, like, throughout your writing journey, either craft or not?
Wow, that's a big question.
Are you
I mean, I think I can say really easily that most of the craft books that Writer's Digest has produced have been influential in my life in helping me understand craft. Jane Friedman's The Business of Being a Writer, huge impact in my life. I think what Jane is doing is remarkable, and she's really peeling back the layers on an industry that feels shrouded at times. So those in terms of craft have been incredibly instrumental. And then, yeah, for fiction, I don't know. I mean, I'm such a mood reader. You could ask me this question next week and I'll give you a different answer. Right now, I'm fangirling hard. I am fangirling hard with anything Kate Quinn does, anything that Chris Parnell puts out. Like, those are two really easy reaches for me at the moment.
What are you currently looking for your manuscript wish list?
Yeah, so my wish list is long and deep. I rep fiction and nonfiction. So I'm always looking for something. In the fiction space, I'm really looking for gothic horror that doesn't lean too gratuitous, right? Horror can't just be for horror's sake, it needs to serve the story. Um, I'd love to see more queer love stories that aren't like just a coming out story, like something that's just a love story, I think would be amazing. I'm always a sucker for World War I historical fiction or more contemporary historical fiction, so like 1980s and beyond. Um, so those are things in the fiction space that I'm very hungry for. In the nonfiction space, I'm really looking for narrative, creative narrative written by women who are in traditional men's spaces, because I feel incredibly called to help document those experiences, in case they are erased. So I'm actively looking for that because there's just not a lot out there. And I know that the stories exist.
So you've made your own path with your literary agency, which I think
Mhm.
is so brave and amazing. Did you ever consider like doing a self-publishing path with your writing, or have you always known you wanted to go traditional publishing?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I cut my teeth in like literary magazines and journals, online journals. So I have the utmost respect for the indie space. And I think that we are seeing as an industry a shift toward more respect for the indie space, as it should be, because what indie authors do is incredibly difficult. You are not only the author, you are the marketer, you are every single component in this wheel. And because of that, because I recognize my own deficiencies, I know that I would not be successful because I don't think I have the marketing bone in me to be able to do that for myself. So traditional publishing has always felt like that penultimate dream. Walking into a library and seeing something that's from one of the big five, it's always been a dream for me.
That's a very good, I think it's an important way to look at it is looking at your strengths and could you bring that to all the spaces and still do all the things that you want to do?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's not to say, right? Like, even if you are with a big five imprint, you don't know what your marketing team is going to be able to do. But if it can shoulder a smidge of the load, I think that for me personally would set me up for better success than if I was like, oh no, now I have to go do all of this in addition to everything else I'm doing.
That would be a lot for sure. So when you queried, did you get your agent with the book that you have on sub now, or was it with a previous book? How did you go
Yes.
about getting your agent?
Yeah, so I did the traditional querying routes, sending out queries, testing my query letter, evaluating all the things, and I was getting nowhere. And so I went to New York Pitch, which is like this tiny little conference that allows you to meet with editors or agents over the course of 2.5 days. And the first day or so, you workshop your pitch. The agent will really push back and like ask a ton of questions about the project. And the ultimate goal is that they're getting you prepared to pitch to editors, um, which is really fun. It's a little bit different than the standard conference, I think, that we see. So I was there for a completely different book, and I was working with my agent to get my logline ready to do all the things. And by the end of conference, she offered me rep. So, I had been so long in the querying trenches, and then it took really that face-to-face meeting for it to actually happen for me.
I have heard that too, that pitching is very different than cold query.
Yeah, I mean, now speaking as an agent, it is my favorite way to meet authors, right? It's my favorite way to evaluate projects because it happens in real time. Or as strong as authors as we might be, it is difficult. There's an art to writing a query letter. There's an art to writing a synopsis. So if I can sit down for someone with 7 to 10 minutes and really get to the heart of their story, we're skipping so many of the steps, right? Like now I've had my gut check. Now I know, do we
Right.
vibe? Now I understand your personality. And it makes it that much easier to then look at the work in a different way. I mean, I think that if it's available and open to authors, it absolutely speeds the line.
Did your agent offer you rep at the end of that pitch event, or like you sent stuff later and then you talked back and forth?
Nope, it was at that pitch event.
Holy moly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Um,
so quick.
It was very quick, and of course, I didn't need to think about it. I knew who she was. Like I know who she is, right? Like I know what she reps, and said absolutely yes, right there. And then I went and fainted. I was like, oh no, I can't believe this just happened. Mhm.
Right? Let me
Yes,
hyperventilate.
yes,
That's
exactly. Like I
amazing.
need, yeah, yeah. And she's fantastic. She's been such a good steward of my career. She always, always guides me to the right place. And so I take a lot of what our relationship is and try to put that with my clients as well.
Did you seek advice from her at all when you started your own agency?
Absolutely. No, yeah. So we're definitely friends, right? So we've got like multiple prongs to our relationship. And I can lean on her for sure if I have questions. I also have this great group of agent friends now. I'm part of the ALA. I do a lot of conferences. I'm always meeting new agents because all of this is a community effort, right? And I firmly believe that like if I have some knowledge that you don't, why would I not share it with you? And so I've been really fortunate to meet
Right.
like-minded agents as well.
That's so cool.
Mhm.
I have heard that there is a Slack.
There is a Slack and it is very
um,
active. You have heard correct. Mhm.
that's what I heard. That's wonderful. I feel like what you said, it's it seems almost counterintuitive because like a book is one thing and it has one name on the front, right? And so when you see it, when you're not as knowledgeable about the industry, it looks like one person wrote a book. But really, it's like this whole community of people like made this book be able to happen,
Yeah, that's
like at
exactly
every
right.
level.
Every single level. Yes, absolutely. Um, I think that's why I love reading the acknowledgments section of any novel because first I'm like, oh, who do you know, right? Like, let's create our spider web, right? And then also just to see the labor that goes into it. There are so many different people that are helping bring that book into the world.
Hmm. Yeah, sometimes I read the acknowledgments first.
Hmm, that's sweet. I
um,
like that.
I Well, I like to know kind of a little bit what I'm in for. Like there's usually never spoilers in the acknowledgments, so you don't usually have to worry about that. And I just like to see, like a lot of times they'll say about like how long they've worked on this book, or like um I just like to see kind of behind the curtain a little bit before I get into it.
Yeah. And I think it like tells you a little bit about the author's personality also, right? Like, are they thinking they're
Yeah.
cats? Do they remember their goldfish, et cetera, et cetera? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much happening. So, yeah. Yeah, it's a massive team. I was just thinking about all my teams, right? Like all the different subsets of teams that I have who are helping me in various capacities. It's remarkable. This is definitely a community.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very cool. It's very different, I guess, when I was a reader and not a writer. Because I was a reader for very many, many years before I was like, I should try to make one of those. It looks like a solitary activity from the outside. So it's interesting that it's absolutely not.
No, not at all. I think that's one of the massive misnomers of the industry, right? Writing is so solitary. Like maybe, but actually writing the book is only 30% of the job anyway. It's everything else that goes into it. And that's when you lean into your community.
Are you working on, you mentioned that you had a character that was stuck in your head. Is it a new project that you're working on?
Yes. Well, it's not new. I think I'm on draft 8. I'm on draft 8. I know I'm on draft 8. I don't even need to say think. I am on draft 8 of this World War One witchy spy book. Um, and it's delightful. I think for the first time, I'm really hitting my stride in the right way. I know this character now in an intimate way that I did not before. And so coming back to like the outline, right? Like I still have my original outline and we're still loosely following it, but my depth of knowledge of who she is and of what's driving her, what she's fearful of, etc., is now so deep that even in the smallest action, I'm able to ripple that through. And that's, when you asked when is a work done, I think that when it becomes intrinsic or inherent or innate in your characters for them to embody, these flaws and these characteristics we provide them, that's when the work is close to being finished. So I anticipate after this draft setting it out. Like I think it's ready to go.
How did you find that about your character? Was it just the process of going through the drafts and going through the revisions? Or,
No, it's understanding the character, right? Like, um,
yeah, like some people make character sheets. Some people take their characters to therapy. How do you find your characters?
I definitely don't do character sheets because that is a way for me to get distracted and I won't get work done. Um, I don't do the
Yeah.
therapy. I don't do like conversations with them. My tried and true method is to just write the book so many times until I figure them out. And so I think also
Hmm.
like that's a skill that I've trained in myself, right? With journaling. It's like I'm journaling to understand whatever it is. And through the act of actually physically writing it out, I'm uncovering something about myself. And so that process then is replicated with the characters on the page. I have to write it out. Otherwise, I
Hmm.
won't. Like, I think obviously, like, we start with a character and we have a loose idea of what their core wound might be or what they want most in life. But I can't get to that level of nuance and detail until, like, where her tucking her hair behind her ear signals whatever. I can't get to that point until I've written the book so many times.
Is the book that you're working on now, is it a single POV?
It's dual POV. So we've got the witchy hopeful spy, and then we have a male main character who comes in about once every 3 chapters, who is kind of like hates the world and sort of balances out the female point of view. Um, and it's gelling quite nicely.
Was it tricky to find both of their voices, or did they
Not
just
at
kind
all.
of
They
appear?
came like I
No?
knew who yeah, no, I knew who she was. My main character is Hungarian, and I've had the fortune of spending some time in Budapest. So, like, I think she's been roaming around my head for a while. And then the male counterpoint is an English soldier, and this is World War One, and I'm deeply fascinated
Hmm.
by World War One. So I think it all sort of it emerges, right? It's like one day it's not there, and the next, like that's the only thing you can see, and that's exactly where we are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. I love when it gets to that point where you're like, this is gonna work.
Yes, exactly. Which is why I'm like so thankful that, I've got this outline though, so I don't feel this fiery urgency that I have to get it down right now. Like I know what's about to happen next. And I'm allowing myself some creative
Hmm.
leeway, but at the same time, I know that we're heading out of Oxford and we're going to Budapest soon.
Yeah. How long does it take you to work on a project usually?
I mean, I used to be able to produce something readable in a year, but I've been working on Ruby for far longer because obviously the agency has taken all of my extra time, all of my available effort, as it should. I'm not begrudging that at all. And
Mhm.
I recognized that when I started, that, okay, I'm probably going to need 18 months of not having active creative work personally, so that I can focus on getting
Right.
things going. But now that we're kind of getting into a rhythm of everything, I can nearly find time to sit to pages 3 times a week. And that's all I can ask for. So I don't know how long it takes me now because it's all new territory.
That's okay. I was mostly just curious. I feel like sometimes that's another kind of thing is that, oh, you have to write and you have to do it in a certain amount of time. But there's something nice to letting it breathe too, because I feel like sometimes more ideas or like more details can seep in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I was younger, in my 20s and my 30s, I felt this massive drive to produce as quickly as possible because I was scared that there wasn't going to be enough air, right? It's that scarcity that is ingrained in every creative. And I'm at a point
Mhm.
in my career where I'm allowing the process to take as long as it takes and trying not to force it because she's still going to be there in a month, even if I can't sit to pages for the next month, right? Like she's not going anywhere. Um, but I think that kind of awareness just comes with time, with sitting with being a creative person and learning about yourself more.
That's so true. I have a critique partner and she had to take a step back from writing for a while and she was feeling really guilty about it, but I um was kind of like, to who? Like to us, we'll read whatever whenever you have it. Like you don't owe
Yeah.
anything to us and you don't owe anything to your characters. You made them up. Like they don't mind waiting.
Right. But it's hard, right? Like you want to
Yeah.
produce, you want to hit your deadlines, you want to stay on track. But life gets in the way. And that's kind of when, earlier in the conversation when you said, do you write every day? I was like, how is that possible? I cannot understand how in what life that works for anyone, but it doesn't work for me. I'm sure it works for a lot of other people.
Yeah. I think like I write every day, but I don't always work on my manuscript. Like sometimes I need a break and I will just write really terrible poetry that no one's ever going to see. Um, and I don't have to be good at it. And I like that I'm giving myself permission that I can write terrible poetry because I enjoy it. Nobody has to read it. I don't have to be good at it. But I still like that time to play with words.
For sure. Yeah. I think that I get that opportunity when I'm crafting a client's pitch or I'm working on social
Yeah,
media for Rosecliff. It's still creative pursuit. But yeah, I mean, like
totally.
every day with your manuscript, it just feels like at some point it becomes a chore. And it's like, I don't want this to be a chore. I want this to
Yeah.
be a labor of love, something that I like look forward to doing.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the manuscript would absolutely suffer if it started to feel like a chore or like you hated it. Like if you hated your manuscript at some point because you pushed it too much, people would feel that.
Of course they would. That's why, like when NaNoWriMo was a thing, I was like, how are you? Why? Who who's signing up for this? Like you're just torturing yourself and it's going to be the worst experience.
Yeah, 50,000 words in a month. I did one NaNoWriMo and I was like, no, can't, I will write. I'll like go along, but for me, that's too much. Like,
Yeah, same. Absolutely same.
yeah, yeah, I'm much more like, I like making attainable goals. Like
Mhm.
maybe sometimes it's a little bit of a push, but something that I am able to achieve. And so I don't get burnt out or hate it.
or feel terribly about yourself, right? Like I have enough reasons to feel bad about myself. I don't need to add in the fact that I'm not meeting my creative goal. Like let's just no, let's avoid that.
It's been so nice to talk to you about all this, and I find it just so fascinating, like the balance between the agenting and the authoring, because they are so similar, right? They all come from the love of story, but it is like definitely, I feel like different brain spaces. So it's been interesting to hear like how that works for you in your day.
Yeah, totally different brain spaces. But still creative. And I mean, it's like I wake up thinking about my clients. I think about their projects constantly. Oh, we should try this. I should do that. My notes apps are just really unhinged at this point because I'm constantly having ideas. Um, but Nicole, I just can't think of another thing that I should be doing with my life. Like this is it.
Yeah,
And I'm so grateful that I've landed on it.
that's awesome.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you would like to share?
Yeah, there is one thing that I would love to share is that at Rosecliff, we try to be very accessible. We want to peel back the layers on this industry. So please come hang out with us online. Never feel bad about sending us a DM. We're here. We host AMAs just about every Saturday afternoon. So if you have a publishing question, come hang out with us there. Um, we do this because we want to bring story into the world. So love to grow that community as much as we can.
Where are your AMAs most?
We're
Is it on Instagram?
Yeah, we love the gram. So we're at Rosecliff Lit.
Me too. Okay, I'll link all of your stuff too.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I am so inspired by Jessica, and not just at her bravery at forging her own path in the publishing industry by starting her own agency, but I'm also really impressed with her just knowledge of herself and what works for her own writing. And it's made me kind of re-examine my own writing practices to kind of see what is working or what am I doing because I feel external pressure to do that. So I invite you to also think about your writing practices and what is working for you. If you're not an outliner already, maybe that's something you might want to try. Or maybe you need to just embrace your non-outlinerness, your pantsing. Anyway, I hope that you were able to get something out of this interview as well. And if you feel like you would be a good fit for Jessica or someone at her agency, I will have all of the things linked in the show notes for how you can submit to them. Thanks for being here. See you next time. Bye.